Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I'm going to be doing the Reader Problems book tag. Now this tag is honestly ancient. I think it was going around in like 2014 before I even had a booktube channel, and I know I'm super late to the game, but I was watching a few videos recently and I saw this tag as I was just exploring, and it looked like a lot of fun and I really wanted to do it, and since I never got to do it before, I thought why not just do it like 3 years later, it's fine. But this tag is essentially, as the name suggests, about the problems we face as readers, and it's just 11 questions, and I thought it would be a lot of fun to do it, so that's why I'm doing it today. And without any further ado, let's just get into me discussing all of my reader problems. Question number 1, you have 20,000 books on your TBR. How do you decide what book to read next? Now honestly, I have no idea because I am such a mood reader. It literally just depends on whatever I'm feeling that day. That'll determine what book I will pick up next. So that's why I don't make TBR videos, because every time I try and make a TBR video, that TBR is essentially only set for like the first day or two that I made it. After that, my mood just changes completely and I want to read something entirely different. So that's why I don't make those videos anymore. But yeah, honestly, if I'm just feeling like I really want to read a fantasy, I will pick up a fantasy that day. If I just really feel like I want something light and contemporary, then I'll pick up a contemporary. It just so depends. So I honestly cannot say that there's a specific way that I decide which book I'm going to read next on my TBR. Yeah, I'm just super moody when it comes to reading. Question number 2, you're halfway through a book and you're not really loving it. Do you quit or are you committed? I'm 100% committed. I don't DNF books. I've DNF'd like a couple of books in my life, but those were mostly books that I read like years and years ago, back before I ever had booktube. But nowadays, every single time I start a book, I have to finish it. I may finish it like 6 months later, but I will still finish the book regardless of how much I don't like it. The reason is that even if I'm not liking a book, I feel the need to finish it because if I don't like it, I have to be able to talk about why I don't like it. And for me personally, I want to be able to talk about every single detail of why I don't like a book, so I have to finish it so I can talk about it in detail. I know that's not the best way to necessarily go about it because I shouldn't waste my time finishing a book if I don't like the book, and I honestly admire people who can DNF books. I want to be able to get to that point, but right now, regardless of how much I don't like a book, I am committed. I have to finish that book. Question number 3, the end of the year is coming and you're so close but so far from your Goodreads goal. Do you try and catch up, and how? I absolutely have to complete my Goodreads goal. Like, I will be really, really sad and stressed out if I don't finish my Goodreads goal. And currently, I think I've read 50 books this year or something, and my Goodreads goal is 65. So I have like 2 months to finish like 15 more books, which I think I can manage because I have a good deal of books that I've already started, probably around 15, that I think that I can probably finish by the end of the year. But yeah, I 100% have to complete my Goodreads goal, and every single time that I definitely need to get some more books in, I will pick up like shorter books, like poetry books, comics, graphic novels, things like that, because those will definitely help you. So yeah, sometimes it's motivating and sometimes it's stressful, but I always have to get myself to catch up in some way. Question number 4, the covers of a series that you love do not match. How do you cope? I don't cope. It's the worst. I hate it, and it's so frustrating. In all seriousness though, I feel like this used to bother me way more than it bothers me now. Like currently I have 2 different covers for the Diviners books. I'm gonna have different covers for the Ember and the Ashes series, and while I love both of those series, I honestly don't care as much at this point. Like yeah, it's kind of frustrating when you look at them all on the shelf and they're not all cohesive, but at the same time, I like the covers that I have now, and I do like some of the other covers, so it doesn't bother me as much now. Honestly, what bothers me more than anything is if I like a series and the covers are just ugly. Like that's just more upsetting to me, honestly, than if the covers don't all match. Question number 5, everyone and their mother loves a book that you really don't like. Who do you bond with over shared feelings? I feel like this happens to me so often because I don't like a lot of popular books, especially the ones that are pretty popular here on BookTube, the Throne of Glass series. But there are a number of people here on BookTube and on Book Twitter and things that I can turn to and just rant about my feelings. Zoe from Read by Zoe is one person who I always turn to whenever I have like a problem with a book. I'm like, listen, this is bad and I need to rant about it. I don't get why everyone likes it. Sometimes I also turn to my friends in real life and I just rant to them about these books, even though none of them read and have not read the book that I'm ranting about. It doesn't matter, even though they don't know what I'm talking about. I can just get all of my feelings out, and that's a good way to cope. But yeah, that's the great thing I think about BookTube and just the book community in general. You will always be able to find someone who agrees with you on your opinion on some book, and that way you can go to them and talk to them and just let all of your feelings out, and it just feels great knowing that someone else understands your hatred for a book. Question number 6, you're reading a book and you're about to start crying in public. How do you deal? I let it all out. If I am reading a book and that book is gonna make me start crying, there's no stopping those tears from streaming down my face. Most recently, I was reading John Green's Turtles All the Way Down on a plane ride, and I was sobbing my eyes out, and the guy who was sitting next to me, I think he genuinely thought that there was something wrong with me because I was listening to the book on audiobook, so I didn't even have like a book in front of me, so he couldn't tell that I was actually reading something and it was the book that was making me cry. I think he thought that there was something seriously wrong with me and I was like going to a funeral, or there was just like something really sad going on in my life and I was just like a mess, even though I was a mess, but he didn't know that it was because of the book. So yeah, that was an experience. But that's happened to me like quite a few times with other books as well. Like I'll be in the library and I'll just like start crying, and then people will look at me weird and I have to like look up from my book with mascara streaming down my face, and it's not pretty. But if a book is going to make me feel that, I need to let myself feel it, because for me that's part of the reading experience. Whenever a book can make me cry, like actually cry, I know that I love that book, because the book having the ability to elicit those types of emotions from me is just amazing, and it's the best experience in the world, so I will always let myself cry in public. Question 7, the sequel to a book that you love just came out, but you can't remember what happened in the first book. Do you skip the sequel? Do you look up a synopsis? Do you just cry about it? What do you do? So for me personally, I will always, if I have a review of that book, go back and watch or read the review that I wrote or filmed, or if I don't have a review of it, I will watch someone else's review of the book, and if I can't find a review that is like spoiler filled of that previous book, then I usually go and I read like a synopsis. Like if it's a Mortal Instrument series, like let's take that series for example, because it's so long and there's so much to it, and I need to remember something from like the third book that I can't remember at all. There's like the Wikia page for the Shadowhunters novels, so I can always just go on there and read that, which is usually what I do, but I will like never skip out on the sequel. Question number 8, you do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell people no when they ask? I'm not too bad about letting people borrow my books. I tend to let my friends borrow my books because they know how I take care of my books and they know how important they are to me, so they take good care of them as well, and I know that I'm always going to get them back. But there are some books that I don't lend out to people, usually because they're signed or they have like some sort of special sentimental value to me, and I just don't want anything to happen to them. I don't want to risk it at all. And my friends like know that, so I'm pretty open with them about it. I'll just say no and they'll understand and they won't care. For the most part, I will lend my books out to anyone if they ask me and if I trust them enough, but if I don't really know a person, then I don't really feel any shame in just saying, no, I'm not gonna lend out my book to you because I don't really like lending them out too much. Question number 9 is phrased a little bit weird, and it says reading ADD, and I don't think that that's like a good way to talk about ADD, which is an actual thing that a lot of people deal with, so I'm gonna rephrase it. But essentially the question is about reading slumps and how do you get over them? And honestly, I don't know. There are tons of videos that other booktubers have made about reading slumps and how to get over them. And yeah, there are tips that work, but sometimes you just gotta let that reading slump have its time and you just have to go with it. Sometimes you just can't read a book for several months, and that's okay. You don't have to force yourself to do it. And while it's really, really frustrating, and I know because I've been in a terrible reading slump this year, sometimes it's just okay to sit and binge watch Netflix instead of reading that book you've been wanting to read. Personally, when I'm in a really bad reading slump, I will tend to pick up shorter books, because for me at least, when I finish a book, it makes me feel more accomplished and it makes me feel like I've been reading more. So I'll pick up short things like graphic novels, comics, poetry books, novellas, things like that that are just way shorter, and I know I can finish them in just one sitting and it'll be fine. So that's what I tend to do, just so I feel like I've actually read a little bit and I don't feel like I'm not reading at all. And that tends to help me get back into reading more slowly and picking up longer books, and then eventually just being able to read at my normal level. But yeah, reading slumps, man, they're the worst. Question number 10, there are so many new books coming out that you're dying to read. How many do you actually buy? Now before BookTube, I feel like my answer would have been probably just one. And then after BookTube, my answer would be every single one. And now, like at this point in time, I feel like I've gone back to buying only one or two that I've been really anticipating. And that's mostly because I get a lot of books sent to me by publishers. So sometimes I end up buying a book that is then sent to me like a week later that I didn't know was being sent to me. So I have 2 copies of that same book. So I tend to wait wait now until a little bit after the release of a book, and then I will buy the book if I'm really anticipating it. But also at this point, I feel like I have so many books that it's become overwhelming and I constantly just am running out of space for them. So I've been trying to limit my buying of books and not buying as many new releases, which is difficult when you love books so much and you want to read all the new wonderful ones that are coming out and support new authors. But sometimes I really do have to limit it, and I've really been trying to do that. And finally, question number 11, after you've bought the new books that you've been dying to read, how long do they sit on your shelf? Now this is the real question, isn't it? Because this can range from like 3 seconds to 3 years. Like I said, I'm such a mood reader that the next book that I pick up solely depends on what my mood is that day. So if I get a new release that I'm super excited for and I'm really in the mood to read it that day, I will read it that day. But if I'm still anticipating that book, I'm just not in the mood to read it that day, that book can end up sitting on my shelf for several years. And that has happened countless times now. So yeah, it's frustrating. I wish that I wasn't as much of a mood reader and I could just pick up the book instantly and just start reading it based on whatever I have assigned myself to read, but that's just not the way that I work, so I have to accept it. Alright guys, so that is it for the reader problems book tag. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Let me know in the comments down below any of your answers to any of these questions. What are your biggest reader problems? How do you get over a reading slump? How do you decide which book you want to read next? And how long do new releases end up sitting on your shelf? Also, if you'd like to see me film any more tags, definitely let me know which ones in the comments down below, because I've been in a kind of tag filming mood. They're just a lot of fun and they're really easy to film, and I've just needed some things to kind of de-stress lately. So definitely if you're interested in seeing me do any more tags, I would love to hear about them. But that is it for this video. If you'd like to follow me on any of my social media, all of my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!